Hello, everyone. I'm Joe Martinez. I'm going to tell you something that many major media outlets have avoided reporting to you in full. Because this story isn't just a war report, it's the story of how a president could lie to his own people, his own Congress, and his own history, and what the true cost of that has been. Donald Trump has publicly shared twice that a former president called him during this war and expressed regret for not having attacked Iran sooner. Sounds dramatic, doesn't it? A powerful narrative, the weight of history on one's shoulders, a former leader, remorseful, on the phone. There's just one small problem. Representatives of all four living former presidents, three Democrats, one Republican, have confirmed that Trump did not communicate with any of them during the period in question. The phone call never happened. So, who is this former president he didn't want to embarrass? Trump told the journalists who asked the question only this: I don't want to embarrass him. Yes, he didn't want to embarrass the imaginary person on the other end of a non existent phone call. This is where the heart of this video beats. A country is spending roughly $1 billion a day in a conflict it has been actively fighting for 3 weeks, and every word coming from the mouth of the man who started that conflict must be scrutinized one by one to determine whether it's true or fiction. This isn't the beginning of a political debate. This is a test of American democracy's resilience. Now let's step back and look at the full picture, because this picture is a massive jigsaw puzzle or riddle made up of pieces that seem scattered but are actually interconnected, and things have truly gotten complicated. February 28th, 2026. The U.S. and Israel launched a joint airstrike against Iran without congressional approval, without notifying allies. During a meeting with the Japanese Prime Minister, Trump joked, "You wanted a surprise. We delivered it. Who knows this better than Japan?" He was referring to Pearl Harbor by touching Japan's most sensitive scar. And from that day until now, in just 21 days, the world has changed. The Strait of Hormuz has been virtually closed since the start of the war. This critical waterway, through which roughly one-fifth of the world's oil trade passes, is now a dead zone. Oil prices have risen by 45% compared to pre-war levels. The price of a barrel of crude oil has surpassed $110 and is expected to rise further. This is a terrifying scenario. No American wants this. But what did Trump say? We don't get oil from that strait anyway. It's not our problem. Is that true? According to U.S. energy analyst Pavel Molchanov, while the U.S. imports limited amounts of oil directly from the Gulf region, U.S. fuel prices, which are tied to the global oil market, are directly affected by every fluctuation in this strait. So Trump said, it doesn't affect us, while the Dallas Fed report stated, it affects the world, including the U.S. This is the anatomy of the first lie. Now let's move on to the second, the Tomahawk missile issue. Trump claimed that the missile seen in the footage of an IRGC base near an elementary school was a Tomahawk, and that Iran possesses such missiles. It sounds plausible. In the midst of a war, chaos reigns. Could Iran have somehow obtained these missiles? N.R. Jensen Jones, director of the weapons research consultancy Armament Research Services, stated that the missile in the footage is clearly a Tomahawk and that Iran does not possess this system. Produced by Raytheon and developed for the U.S. military, these missiles are sold only to select allies, such as the UK, Australia, Japan, and the Netherlands, under strict export controls, not to Israel or any other ally in the Middle East. In other words, the missile in the footage is American-made. It is highly likely that the U.S. or Israel fired it. Trump, however, said, no, Iran fired it, and international weapons experts have explicitly refuted this. This is the anatomy of the second lie. Let's move on to the third one. This is my favorite, because this lie has a 25-year history. Bin Laden and 9/11. Trump said on Monday, I predicted exactly 1 year in advance that bin Laden would attack the World Trade Center. I wrote this clearly in the book I wrote in 2000. Journalists checked the book. CNN checked it. Everyone checked it. Trump's 2000 book, The America We Deserve, contains no warnings or advice regarding bin Laden. This claim has been repeated for decades. It has been proven false for decades, and Trump is repeating it again in the midst of a war with Iran because a man who started this war needs to appear to have strategic foresight. No foresight, no legitimacy. No legitimacy, no money from Congress. And this is where we get to the biggest story, $200 billion. The Pentagon is requesting an additional $200 billion from Congress to fund the war with Iran. This figure is nearly a quarter of the Pentagon's annual budget. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said at a press conference, "Killing bad guys costs money." Yes, that's exactly what he said. So where is this money coming from? The U.S. national debt has reached a record high of $39 trillion. Trump's campaign promise, however, was to shrink the government and cut spending. The cost of the first 12 days of the war is estimated at $16.5 billion, according to the Center for Strategic and International Studies. That's $1 billion a day. And now the Pentagon wants multiples of that figure. But here's the striking part. Republican leaders admit they can't even get their own party to vote for this war. Citing the White House's failure to present a clear strategy, many Republicans are refusing to approve this funding. Alaska Senator Lisa Murkowski's words have stuck in people's minds. Alaskans are asking me when this war will end. I can't answer them. I have no answer. Republican Representative Thomas Massey, however, asked a sharper question. Is this the first 200 billion, or is it going to reach $1 trillion? Think about it. Members of his own party are asking their own president this question, not behind closed doors, in front of the camera, with the microphone on. And look at the backdrop to all this. An F-35 fighter jet was forced to make an emergency landing at a U.S. base in the Middle East. It is believed to have been hit by Iranian fire. The pilot is in stable condition. 13 U.S. soldiers have lost their lives in this war. The Pentagon confirmed this figure this week. Trump, however, said, "I'm not sending ground troops." He then added, "If I were sending them, I wouldn't tell you anyway." This is not a presidential statement. This is the attitude of a man managing the war toward the public. We'll say what we need to say. Whether you know the rest or not, it doesn't matter. According to the White House's own internal assessments, high energy prices could last for months. The economic impacts of the war are affecting not just the Middle East, but the entire globe. And Goldman Sachs, it forecasts that rising oil prices could persist until 2027. Now, I want you to pause for a moment here, because it's very easy to look at all this information and say, but war is sometimes necessary. And I respect that argument. The complexity of war, its dual nature, is real. No major decision is entirely black or white. But what's being debated here isn't the legitimacy of war. What's being debated is this. Why does the leader behind such a momentous decision, the deployment of thousands of American troops to the Middle East, a $200 billion bill, a global energy crisis, feel the need to lie to justify it? If a decision is truly right, it stands on the facts. According to a Reuters Ipsos poll, 43% of Americans oppose this war. In a CBS poll, 62% believe the Trump administration has not adequately explained the war's objectives. 62%. This is not a minority view. This is the voice of the majority. Now let's look at the bigger picture. Because these lies don't exist in a vacuum, they have political consequences, and these consequences will deeply shake the Republican Party in the coming months. Republican leaders are aware they won't be able to secure enough votes, even from within their own party, to fund the war. As energy prices rise and support for the war wanes, critical elections this fall are approaching. Consider what an ironic twist this is. Trump came to power in 2016 by calling the U.S. a foolish country that endlessly funds other nations' wars. He won again in 2024 using the same rhetoric. And now he's making one of the largest war funding requests in history to Congress. Republican Representative Chip Roy said, "I want to be consistent on Iran just as I've been consistent on Ukraine." And that sentence says a lot. So the party of the man who won votes with endless war rhetoric is now seeking funding for its own endless war. Meanwhile, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has explicitly declared that this war violates international law. In response, Trump threatened Spain with trade sanctions. Allies have merely refused to join this war. Now they're facing threats. Trump, who has labeled NATO allies cowards, is pressuring these countries to contribute to securing the Strait of Hormuz. At the same time, he says, this strait isn't important to us. Two statements contradict each other, and within this entire picture, a scenario is emerging. U.S. officials are evaluating a plan for a ground operation to seize Iran's Karg Island oil export hub, which directly contradicts Trump's statement that he won't send ground troops. Someone is lying, either what they said in the past or what they're planning now. Both cannot be true at the same time. This is precisely the essence of the reality sandwich. On one side, strong rhetoric, fiery press conferences, shouts of, we're killing the bad guys. On the other side, an F-35 hit by Iranian fire. 13. American soldiers killed. Gas prices have hit record highs across the U.S. Even his own party in Congress can't get an answer to the question, what's your plan? The nuclear negotiations conducted before the war collapsed, and internal unrest in Iran had escalated. In this context, the conflict is viewed not as a sudden crisis, but as a predictable scenario. And now, 21 days later, no one knows a clear endpoint. We've won, says Trump. I want to end it, says Trump. But I won't end it, says Trump. I'm not sending Marines, says Trump. But if I were sending them, I wouldn't say so, says Trump. These inconsistencies are no coincidence. This is an information war waged by an administration against its own people. And with each passing day, every new contradictory statement, every irreparable lie, all of these are causing cumulative damage. This isn't a single explosion. This is death by 1,000 cuts. Now, I want to ask you a real question, and I need the comments section to answer it. If a president has to resort to rehashing 25 years of debunked lies to justify this war to his own people, what does that tell you? Does it mean this war has truly been won? Or does it mean the picture isn't quite as it's been painted? Share your thoughts in the comments section. I promise I'll read every comment. Your perspectives are invaluable to me. And if you want to see more of this kind of analysis, if you want to keep seeing the background the media isn't telling you, click that red subscribe button right now, because this story isn't over. It's just getting deeper. I'm Joe Martinez. See you in the next video.